I'm Brent Barnett on Brownfield Ag News. Today, I'm joined by Justin Glisan, who's the state climatologist for Iowa. Justin, how are you doing today?
Hey, Brent, I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good. And, we're here in 2025 already, Dr. Glisan, getting into mid January. And I'm sure there's a lot to pay attention to on the weather side of things.
Absolutely. So we're more in a quiet weather pattern. Jet stream has brought us some Arctic air, so we've been colder than average over the last 7 to 10 days across the state and much of the ag belt in the upper Midwest. Storm track is stuck south of us, so you think of Missouri, Illinois, through the eastern Corn Belt, and even further south in the southern states. So while we've been having colder temperatures here in Iowa and across the upper Midwest, luckily, we haven't seen a lot of precipitation. In fact, if you look across central to the western Corn Belt, anywhere from 7 to 20 inches below average for snowfall for this time of the year.
Will some additional snowfall be needed across parts of Iowa when we look at soil moisture levels heading into the spring planting season?
Absolutely. Any moisture we can get is what we need because we have depleted soil moisture profiles through the growing season. The driest September on record, 51st driest October. Then we turn the faucet back on in November and December. Frost depth is either shallow or wasn't there at the time, so we did infiltrate some moisture and remove abnormally dry and drought conditions across the southern part of the state. We do still see moderate drought across northern half of the state and getting into eastern Iowa. So snowpack, two things there. One, it insulates the surface. It doesn't allow that cold air to get down deep, so the frost depth doesn't get too far down into the soil profile. Why that's important, if we do get a snowpack on the ground, once we start to melt that, higher chances of infiltration with a more shallow frost depth. So insulation, but also moisture out of that snowpack.
We had a farmer on the program just this week from Southwest Iowa in the Adams County area, and he was talking about they got a 5.5 inch rain there in parts of November. And him and his family were discussing their soil moisture, and they thought they were back to about near normal levels for them, and they were pretty excited about that. So, if a grower did get some rain, like you're saying, there in late fall, early winter, I'm sure that they're in a much better spot compared to the last 3 or 4 years.
Definitely. If you look at the drought map this time last year, widespread D2 and D3 conditions across eastern and northern Iowa, and then moderate drought across the rest of the state, then you're talking about the preceding 48 months from December 2023, the fifth driest 4 years on record. So the longest drought that we've had since the 50s. We get into a very active late winter, early spring in 2024 with all the severe weather, record amounts of tornadoes, hail, and high wind across the state, the most active severe weather season for Iowa and for many states in the upper Midwest on record. With all those thunderstorms, we were able to bust that longevity 4 year drought and then start to see replenishment of soil profiles, stream flows rebounded, and we're starting to see a replenishment also of deeper aquifers. But after 4 years of drought, it does take, several years, if not more than a decade, to really replenish those deeper aquifers. And that's where you see getting into a drier fall, we can backslide into drought, and we do see those conditions across the state, as I mentioned earlier. But overall, we're in a much better position for the next growing season than we were last year at this time. So some good news there.
And of course, with winter comes colder temperatures in January, February, the coldest times of the year. Dr. Glisan, could you just talk a little bit about maybe what we're seeing in the outlooks as far as cold temperatures? And, this is obviously has an impact on farmers. They're out there every day, and especially the livestock farmers.
Absolutely. So this is hot off the press. We're in official La Nina advisory. So La Nina conditions reemerged in December 2024. And when we see that configuration in the large scale atmosphere, generally we see colder than average temperatures across the upper Midwest. Think Minnesota into the Dakotas, through Montana into the Pacific Northwest. Drier and warmer conditions across the southern states. Iowa just happens to be right in the middle of that interface. But in previous La Nina years, and we do have some recent data points, 2020 through 2022, 3 consecutive La Nina winters, a near average temperature, but we do see those cold air outbreaks often during La Nina years, particularly in winter. So polar vortex outbreaks, which we're kind of on the tail end right now of. If you look at those short-term outlooks getting us through the second and third week of January, leaning towards colder than average conditions, not substantially colder than average. If you think about last year around the Caucasus, a deep freeze across much of the central part of the United States. We're trending, 4 to 6 degrees below average. You look at January to date, we're only 7/10 of a degree below average. So while it's felt cold outside, it hasn't been substantially colder than average. And again, those outlooks are suggesting colder temperatures, but nothing that nothing that would impact our producers per se with very harsh conditions. Still cold, but nothing blizzard-like or with these Arctic air outbreaks that we typically see late January into February. Nothing on the radar right now.
What else do you pay attention to this time of the year, Justin?
So if we're talking about Arctic air outbreaks, which can bring us a more active storm track as well, there's a indice called the Arctic Oscillation Index. It's a negative or positive, and it's a pressure difference between two stations between the mid and the high latitudes. And not to get into technical issues, but it really does tell us the potential for Arctic air outbreaks 2 to 3 weeks out, or a stabilization of the polar vortex as that index goes from negative to positive. And we've seen that in the modeling, the 10 to 14-day modeling, that negative index that has brought us this cold air is starting to move back towards near normal or even positive, which suggests to me a stabilization of the polar vortex, pulling that Arctic air back further north, and looking at the longer term modeling, forecast modeling, getting us out 2-3 weeks from now. Nothing really a particular note. Now, again, those models this time of year, there is a lot of numerical instability, and those forecast solutions do give us some headaches. But overall, if you're looking at those outlooks, near normal precipitation chances for much of the upper Midwest, and being the driest time of year, that does suggest a less active storm track. We do need snow, but in terms of temperatures, it doesn't look like we're going to get into another polar outbreak for the next few weeks.
Lastly, we did want to ask about river levels. The Mississippi River is a huge corridor for ag transportation when we look at grain exports and other inputs. Are there any concerns, Justin, heading into the spring as far as river levels along the Mississippi?
Yes, I think so. Mississippi and Missouri basins as well. You look at outflow north of Sioux City on the Missouri Basin from the upper Missouri, 91% of normal. So below average stream flows. That snowpack that we need, that we typically get in La Nina years, anywhere from 4 to 6 inches above average for Iowa. And a lot of the northern states also see more snowpack. We're in a snow drought right now. So any runoff potential from below average snowpack is diminished. And that's where you can continue to see stream flows below average, another hydrological indicator that goes into drought monitoring. But with a dry summer, or near normal, I should say, dry fall, and then we turned the faucet on somewhat in November and December. We did see some rebound in inland streams, but the larger stream systems, the larger river systems on the Missouri and Mississippi side are still below average. That's where we need that increased snowpack, as well as timely rainfalls as we get through spring. Additionally, because of vegetative demand, but also the atmospheric demand as we warm up.
We always appreciate the updates. How can our viewers and listeners stay connected with the work from your office?
Yep. So my direct line is 515-281-8981, or Google Iowa Climatology Bureau. It'll bring you to the Department of Agriculture's Climatology Bureau site. Has my contact information, current conditions, historical reports. And if you need any kind of data or have any kind of concerns across your neck of the woods with the drought monitor or anything, weather or climate related, please reach out. I'm always happy to chat.
Always good to talk with you, Justin. Hope you have a good winter, and we'll stay in touch.
Yes, let's hope that 2025 is an average year, Brent.
State climatologist Dr. Justin Glisan in Iowa, right here on Brownfield Ag News. I'm Brent Barnett. Thanks for watching.